it's very late now. Oh, chips. So it's very late now, and I not long ago finished recording my latest Pushy Dreadfuls video, and I mentioned in there that maybe sometime I'll make a video about Neoannophobia because it's New Year's. And I thought, well, what better time than to make this video than New Year's Day? So I have 3 phobias. I have arachnophobia, and it's not like crazy, it's like the normal fear of spiders. I see a spider, I squeal, I scream. I have a fear of flying, so aerophobia or aviophobia. Like, that's a bit more problematic. I will avoid flying. That's why when I went to LA about 2 years ago, it was a really big deal, because I really do avoid flying at all costs. I've flown a few times in my life, and every time I hate it, every time I cry, every time I freak out. The last time I flew was around 2015. I think it was the end of 2014. So I was pregnant with my youngest, and after that trip it got worse because there was a plane crash not long after that visit to I went to Australia, and it's the longest flight. Like, just the idea of doing that flight again, it sends shivers down my spine. It is so long. But there had been a plane crash not long after that trip that I had taken, and I'd already started to get this post-flying dread. I'd just come back from the holiday, well, visiting family in Australia, and like, that's my nightmare, you know. And so I had this post anxiety that actually brought on a lot of my current issues. That flight really kind of broke me. It was part of my slow descent into eventually getting diagnosed with my conditions of complex PTSD, anxiety, depression, the rest of it, which also led on to me being put forward to being tested for ADHD and autism, because when I was getting treated for my other symptoms, they brought up they thought I might have neurodivergencies in terms of ADHD and autism, so ADHD. That really sent me through a loop. I would come up with all these things in my mind. I wouldn't want to go out the house, so I'd imagine cars coming up on the path and stuff, like if they went out of control. I don't like transport in general, so flying especially, that's the worst. But any kind of transport, even being around transport, scares me. I've always been scared of planes flying over top of my head like in case they crash. Like when I'm in my house and there's a plane that's quite low and you can kind of feel the rumble, that scares the life out of me. I worry that it's falling out of the sky, like Donnie Darko kind of style. Anyway, I'm talking about my fear of flying now. It's got me triggered. I really hate flying. But yeah, it was a big deal when I chose to do a flight in 2022 all on my own. It was me being a big girl, you know, and I wanted to overcome a little bit. But that, I don't really fancy flying anytime soon. It'll probably be a while before I fly again. I've been to Lanzarote. That was my very first time I ever flew, and that's when I realised I had a fear of flying. I had a fear of planes before then, of them falling out the sky, but never had a fear of flying. I was actually quite excited to fly the first time, and then when I actually flew, I hated it. And then the next time I flew, so I flew when I was 17 to Lanzarote, and the next time I flew was in 2012. And that's when I first went to Australia, because my now ex-husband is from Australia, went to go visit his family there. And then the next time, I think it's 2014, I think it was like November 2014 that we went, and that was the next time that I flew. And then I didn't fly again until 2022. So very few times have I flown. I don't like it. But then I have neoannophobia. Now, this one, I always feel kind of strange speaking about neoannophobia, because it seems so odd to be scared of New Year's, but I am. It's not the same kind of fear as I get with a spider or flying. Like I say, they're in varying degrees anyway. I say the thing I'm most scared of, like actually scared, is flying, and because I know the spiders in England can't hurt us, I just really don't want them on me, and I will freak out. And like this, I just want to say one thing: spiders are not more scared of me than I am of them, because if that was true, they wouldn't come running towards me. The amount of times I've had spiders charge towards me or be in my bed with me, they're not more scared of me. You would never catch me getting close to a spider, but they come close to me. I'm just saying, they're not scared of me. I'm scared of them. They can smell the fear on me or something. But neoannophobia, the way that makes me feel is very uncomfortable within myself, and it lasts for a while. It lasts for a few days before New Year's and a little while after. It can really vary. I can get over it fairly quickly. If I get particularly busy over that period of time, I can take my mind off it a little bit. So if I'm not particularly stressed or particularly busy, the feeling just lingers longer. How do I explain? It just gives me a sense of dread. It gives me a real sense of dread and melancholy, sadness. For some reason, the year could be awful. Last year was pretty awful for me in many, many ways. There was a lot of good in last year, but there's also a lot of bad, a lot of bad that messed with me in a lot of ways. And the year could be awful. But, you know, I feel like I've settled into that year and I'm not ready for a new year. That's one thing. The change aspect of it. I don't like that. The fear of the unknown, of what's to come. Most years of my life have not been good. So the idea of another year coming, it can be a bit scary. And there's also a bit of melancholy. It's like, okay, well, there was good parts of the last year. And also my mind works in weird ways, I guess. I often think this is the only time we're ever going to be in this year. Very much of the vein of, you'll never be younger than you are today. That kind of idea. Like every year that you are alive, you're only that year for 1 year. I'll only ever be, like, for instance, right now, 37 this one time. I'm never going to be 37 again. There's this little bit of it there for me where it's time passing that makes me sad. The part where the phobia comes in is odd because I know it's completely irrational, but it's something that's been ingrained into me at this point and I can't seem to shake it, even though I know nothing is going to happen. Now, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, which is a full-on cult. Jehovah's Witness is a cult. If you know anyone in Jehovah's Witnesses, they are in a cult. There is no if, buts, or coconuts about it. It is a full-on doomsday cult, if you want to be most accurate. So growing up, you're told, just if you're not even growing up, but I grew up in it. I was born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And you are told every day that the world is going to come to an end. Armageddon is going to come and kill everyone who's not a good Jehovah's Witness. And I say that because not every Jehovah's Witness is guaranteed to get through Armageddon. If you're not a good Jehovah's Witness, and Jehovah can see everything, so if you're not good, and the rules are very strict, there's no if, buts, coconuts about that either. You can't do a little bit of a sin and be like, oh, that's okay. None of it's okay, and you need to be punished for what you do wrong. So in reality, most of the Jehovah's Witnesses I knew, they all broke something wrong. My mum watched Friends and Sex and the City and X-Files, and she liked Lord of the Rings. But like, you can't do things like that. You're supposed to fess up. You're supposed to fess up and tell the elders, like the higher ups, that you did something wrong. So you can have an appropriate punishment. If it's very bad, it will be disfellowshipping, which is like excommunications for Catholics. But it's a bit more severe, I feel, because it's so much shame involved in disfellowshipment. But I don't know in other congregations, but in our congregation, we had a room at the back of the Kingdom Hall where there's a big glass wall, and generally most of the time the people who would use that room would be mothers with babies. When their babies start to cry and cause a ruckus, take your baby into that room, go breastfeed them or whatever in there, so the rest of the congregation can be in peace and listen to the rest of the service. But the real purpose of that glass room was for shaming. So if someone, say, had premarital sex, they would get disfellowshipped. You're supposed to fess up yourself. You are supposed to fess. You're supposed to feel so much guilt and shame about what you've done wrong. Like if you smoked or if you gambled, you're meant to fess up. But everyone is on watch. So even your family members are supposed to dob on you if you do something wrong and they find out about it. Because if they don't dob on you, then they're in trouble, you know? So there's this chain of fear. So you get found out one way or another. You're most likely to get found out at some point. And so you end up going to be disfellowshipped, and that's an undetermined amount of time. It will be determined by the elders how bad the act was and how remorseful you were about it, and they'll determine how long that will be. And not always do you get told how long you're going to be disfellowshipped for. You just got to suck it up and behave yourself, and part of that is to still go to the Kingdom Hall, go to every meeting, but you can't communicate with anyone. Even your own family, you're not supposed to communicate with them. You're not supposed to talk to anyone, not even really let look at anyone, because of the fear of you corrupting the rest of the congregation. But you still have to turn up to show that you're still loyal to Jehovah. So you get sat in this glass room, segregated from everyone else in the congregation, even your family. As far as I believe, because I wasn't ever around when my mum was with disfellowship, because she did actually get disfellowshipped before I was born. But as far as I'm aware, as far as I was told growing up, if you had a family, for instance, and a member of that family got disfellowshipped, they'd have to move out of the family home so that you're not around the rest of the family to corrupt them. So in Jehovah's Witnesses, it's very much established that everyone is going to die at Armageddon apart from the well-behaved Jehovah's Witnesses, the ones who aren't lying to the congregation, aren't lying to the elders, aren't doing things they shouldn't be doing and knowingly doing it and not fessing up. Only the good will survive. Everyone else is going to die. And I remember growing up, I was so scared of Armageddon because it could happen. That's how I said it. Look, it could happen any minute, any day, any hour. Is going to happen. And whenever something on the news would come about, something bad, it would be like, oh, well, that's a sign, because Jehovah won't let the earth get any worse, any war or conflict or something. My mum would always end up saying, like, it's another sign that Armageddon's coming closer. You know, it can be any minute, any day. He's not going to Jehovah's not going to let things get any worse on earth. He's going to destroy it. And I'd always think about how my neighbours, like, little girl just down the street from me, how she was a few years younger than me, and imagining her unalived out on the street, because we were told that we couldn't clear up the mess, that the birds were going to eat the bodies, and then we would have to rebuild the earth afterwards. It's nightmare fuel to think about, and they think of it in happy terms. It's not a sad or horrific thing to Jehovah's Witnesses. It's happy, because basically the scum of the earth will be gone and only Jehovah's Witnesses will be left. But I found it deeply disturbing, which I think is natural. I think most people would, unless you're brainwashed into a cult, a doomsday cult. It always used to scare me. Always used to scare me, the idea of one day everywhere. Go to the shop where the shop used to be, you know, because it won't be there anymore. There'll be no one to run it. But like, bodies everywhere. People who were trying to escape whatever awfulness was coming to destroy the earth, and just having to walk past dead bodies, you know. It wasn't very pleasant to grow up like that. And I did have some unalivened issues of my own growing up because of that. Because to be considered a good Jehovah's Witness, you need to be baptized. But in general, but Jehovah's Witnesses, in a way, I feel is a good thing, where they would rather a child decide they want to be baptized rather than baptizing babies, because babies, they're obviously going to sin. You know, they're going to sin after being baptized, and then they're breaking their promise to God. So they'd rather a child decide it, right? And I wanted to get baptized because I didn't want to not be a good Jehovah's Witness come Armageddon. I was scared it was coming to come any day. I needed to get baptized. But my mum wouldn't let me. She felt that around the age of 10 would be the appropriate age for a child to decide if they really wanted to get baptized, so that they could make that promise in good faith. Hang on, let me just see if I can sort out this light. I don't know if that's made it any better or worse. So from about the age of 5, I wanted to get baptized so I wouldn't have to die. I mean, it's a very young age to be thinking about the end of the world and trying to save yourself, because how it works, Jehovah's Witnesses as well, is if you die at Armageddon, you don't get resurrected. Everyone else who died before Armageddon will get a second chance to live on earth and be resurrected. But if you die at Armageddon, you don't get to come back. So when I realised I couldn't get baptised because my mum wouldn't allow me, and that Armageddon, of course, was going to come really, really soon, I opted to try and end myself. Like I say, at the age of 5, I had thought of ways that I could potentially do it. I used to try hitting my head on things. I would try to get into the bottles of Calpol and see if I could OD with that. Because how I felt was that if I went away, you know, I feel like YouTube's gonna just strike this video so bad, but it is what it is. But if I tried to unalive myself before Armageddon, at least I would get to come back. And because it's coming any day now, my mum and my brothers wouldn't have to miss me for very long, because it's like days away. Armageddon's gonna come and I'll be resurrected, you know. It was such a better option than me risking Armageddon coming before I could get baptized and then being gone forever. So I thought that was the best option. So I did attempt to do that quite a few times before my mum realised what I had been trying to do. Obviously nothing was ever successful. I was a little kid. I couldn't do it, you know, like you hit yourself on the head, it's like, ow, that hurts, I'm not gonna do that anymore. But it was something that I was persistent in, like, how can I do this before I run out of time and I get taken by Armageddon, you know, and I don't get to come back. Mum found out, and she eventually told me that because I was being raised a Jehovah's Witness and that I had a relationship with Jehovah, he would never forgive me for ending my life, and so therefore he wouldn't bring me back anyway. So rock, meet, heart place. By the time the millennium was rolling around, by about, I'd say from the age of around 9, 10, I had started asking a whole bunch of questions, particularly about all the people who would be resurrected. There's a lot of questions I had about gay people, why we should hate them, because it didn't make sense to me. And the resurrection after Armageddon. By that point in time, I was very aware of ancient cultures, the amount of people who were alive and who would have to come back, and how few there were of us as Jehovah's Witnesses. And I would ask questions like, well, if everyone comes back, how are they going to come back? Are they going to come back as adults, or are they going to come back as babies? Because if they come back as babies, how many babies are we going to have to look after each? Because I knew there was only a certain amount, like 8 to 10 million Jehovah's Witnesses, but there was going to be billions of babies suddenly, apparently, from everyone who's ever died. Everyone who's ever lived and died is going to come back. You know, are they going to come back as the age they died at, or baby? And how we, so few of us, going to look after all these babies? And I would ask, if they come back as adults, what about the ancient civilizations with like dead languages and stuff? How are we going to reason with them that they should listen to us and join Jehovah? How are we going to stop them from killing us like barbarians and stuff? How are we going to stop them from just killing us outright, you know? How are we going to convince people like Hitler to listen to us when, like, growing up, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they've got such a persecution complex. Like, whenever you hear about the Holocaust, they get very bitter that they get left out often of the conversation, because he also got rid of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I would say, well, how are we going to convince him? Because he hated us, you know? It didn't make sense. There was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense. Because I asked questions, I kind of got labelled as naughty. Whereas before then, I was very, very pious child. I really wanted to do well. But there were so many questions that I ended up getting. I think it is my ADHD and my autism that kind of saved me from the cult, because it just gave me questions that I could not get past unless I had answers that made sense. And they'd never give me an answer. They'd be like, Jehovah will make it make sense. And it's like, well, no, I need it to make sense now. So eventually I just was like, this isn't real. This is all a lie. If there is one religion, it ain't this one. And so by the time millennium rolled around, I was fully what's called PMO. I was physically in, mentally out. I couldn't be physically out because I was still a child by the time millennium. I was 12 when the millennium rolled around. So the whole of the year 1999, I had this fear that came back to me. I'd purged myself of the fear of Armageddon because I didn't believe in it anymore. But then 1999 happened, and the millennium bug, Y2K, and suddenly everyone, it seemed like everyone, was under the delusion that the world was going to end. There's people doomsday prepping and stuff. So something that I'd grown up with and was deeply scared of, and then talked myself out of just because of a few people. You know, the people that I was exposed to every day, the only people I was allowed to expose to every day, really, they were under this delusion that I'd recognised as a delusion. But then suddenly everyone else who wasn't part of that were now believing the world was going to come to an end. And I started to be like, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe it is true. Maybe Armageddon actually is going to come. Because like now the world seems like sold on the fact that the world is going to end. It's going to be the Y2K. This is it. And within Jehovah's Witnesses, because like I said, I was physically in, I couldn't leave, so I was still around a lot of these people. I still had to go to meetings for a time until I could physically say to my mum, like, Mum, you can't make me go anymore. But it would get brought up in congregation by other Jehovah's Witnesses. They would be talking about how, yeah, it's going to be the millennium, that's when it's going to come, if not sooner. Maybe he won't let it get to that point. Maybe it'll just come sooner than Y2K. Like, that is going to be the end, though. That is the end of the world, and we need to start, you know, getting excited for a new world. It was just us, Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was mentally out. I was checked out. So I had this terrible fear that I'd gone too far. I'd rejected Jehovah too much, and that when the millennium hit and the world ended, that's it. I'm going to be gone. There's no coming back for me now, because obviously I had that relationship with Jehovah. I knew Jehovah previously and I had rejected him. You know, in my heart I knew, and my mind I knew I had rejected him, and I didn't know how to get back in his good graces. And I still didn't believe it. I still didn't believe what they believed in, but this mass delusion of everyone else really put doubt in my mind. So the whole of 1999, I was scared. I was so scared. I wasn't sure what was true and what wasn't. So as New Year's got closer and closer and closer, I resolved to just watching music channels until the ball dropped. I wanted to know what songs would be played on the music channels at midnight. And if I died, then I was going to die watching whatever song hit at midnight. And if you want to know, most of the channels are playing Jennifer Lopez, Waiting for Tonight, and Will Smith's Millennium. And Millennium hit, 12 o'clock hit, it came and went and nothing happened. But even then, for a few days afterwards, I had worried that it was still going to come. But obviously weeks passed. And I was like, ah. And then the rest of the world started to confirm, like, everything's fine, you know. As news started coming out, like, the clocks have been fixed, like, it's not going to cause this big issue. The world isn't going to end. That really calmed me down, you know, and it took me away from the edge. I was like, nope, I was right. I was absolutely right. There's no Armageddon. Jehovah's Witnesses are full of shit. And it just cemented in my mind even more that I was right to reject the cult. But for some reason, every year since, I have this same sense of dread that I had that night in 1999, switching over to 2000. This sense of something awful is going to happen. And there's nothing I can do to stop it because you can't stop time. So it's not so much of a phobia as like, I really know something bad is going to happen, because I don't. And I know really it's not. Nothing's going to, it's just like a change in a minute. 1 minute has changed to another minute, and then we write a different number at the end of the year. And then the seasons start again. There's nothing really that changes. It's just the same old all the time. You have your spring, your summer, your autumn, your winter. And sometimes it makes me feel like, well, what's the point? It's just this monotony every year. And all that happens is I get older. And that also makes me sad. Because I don't feel old at all. But I know the number of my age really affects how people think of me and see me, and how they feel I should behave and how I should look or dress. And I don't want to conform to what other people think of me when I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I am old. And I don't feel like if you don't look old, why would you make yourself look older for no reason, you know? Like, there's a little bit of resentment there about the fact that I'm getting older, but also the knowledge that I am getting older, you know? Yeah, I guess it's just a bunch of all of that stuff. And I really hate New Year's. So I wish everyone Happy New Year, but I will also say I hate New Year's. And that's really what I normally call it, is a hatred of New Year's. I don't like it, but I believe it does fall under the category of neoannophobia. So I do also call it that. So that's that. I don't know about other people. If you have a fear of New Year's, let me know your reasonings in the comments. That would be nice. I haven't met anyone else who has a fear of New Year's. And it's something I've only really voiced in the last, I'd say, decade. Something that I've really been like, I hate New Year's, and would tell people. Other than that, I just used to kind of hide away until it was over. Never went out to party for New Year's, none of that. It's not something that I would do, because I was never excited about New Year's, and I still not. I still don't like it. Last night I played Roblox with my daughter until midnight, and then we watched the fireworks. I will watch the fireworks, and that's about it. So yeah, let me know if you have a fear of New Year's, or if you know someone who has a fear of New Year's, and like how bad it is for them. If it's like a real like actual fear, or if it's just like this fear of dreadness, like this dread that you get in the pit of your stomach. It makes you want to feel sick. That's what it is for me. And what caused it for you? Because it wasn't something that was a problem for me beforehand. I don't think I even really noticed New Year's before 1999. I was saying to my girls last night with the Millennium Wheel, that's all I really remember, fireworks being put on, but I know it wasn't always, because it was only put up for the year 2000. I went to go to the Millennium Dome. I remember the wheel being built and stuff. I guess it would have been like Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament that they lit up at New Year's, but I don't know. It wasn't, even though it's not like a holiday, at least the Jesuits I knew and my family, we didn't celebrate New Year. We didn't celebrate anything fun. Anything fun, we didn't celebrate it. So it wasn't a thing for us. So I don't really remember what they lit up. But that is something I will do every year. I will watch the fireworks, and I will sing Auld Lang Syne, because I know that was something that was forbidden, and I like to do things that are forbidden by Jehovah's Witnesses. I feel like I missed out on a lot of things growing up, and I like to make up for that now. So yeah, let me know if you knew about neoannophobia. Let me know if you have neoannophobia, if you know someone who has neoannophobia, and what caused it. I keep saying that, but yeah, I am really curious about other people, if anyone else is aware of it and that. Or let me know if you've only just found out about it. And if you think I'm odd for it, but I think I'm odd for it, so don't worry if you do think I am. I think it's an odd phobia, and I feel kind of embarrassed, but I don't really hear anyone talking about it. So anyway, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you have listened all this time, it's over 30 minutes long. I'm going to cut that down. Go love you and leave you. I wish you a happy new year, and I'll see you soon. Bye.